Very excited today to be back with Clayton Thomas, the founder of Roots Wellness. Before we start, Clayton, Happy New Year. How has your New Year been so far?
You know, you do your New Year's resolutions, which is more, goal setting and planning, and you get to release a fun new little tricks for the family and such. And you put the intention into the world, and I did some teaching on setting your big audacious goals, right? And I think that's one of the big things is, people are limited in their scope, whether it's due to their vision or training and such. And now it's just, put the big audacious goal out, and if you miss it, you're still going to be insanely successful over what you had probably dreamed of before. But it was funny, we put that intention out. I told everybody what some of my goals were, and then things went click. I was like, oh, here they come. And so it's been amazing. I think the fun part is, the word's kind of out, and what the products are what they are. And we knew that going in, because I know my wife, I know what she created, and that's the reason we created Root, because of it. But then when you get to see it, and then when everyone else starts going, do you know what this stuff is doing? And you start looking at some of the case studies. And I think as we go through this, I'll pull up one of the most recent case studies that I think is rather prevalent for people now. And you go, oh, it is the solution. So if you're not using this stuff, you're missing out. And if you're not using the new two to go along with the Trinity, you're really going to miss out, because they're outstanding. So it's been amazing. How's your New Year been?
It's been really interesting. I think my whole family were ill over Christmas, which I probably knew we had coming. And I'm a strong believer that that's part of what you should be going through, to upgrade and renew, cleanse out the old, detox your body from the old. And I've been putting a lot of intentions out there. And one of the reasons why I'm so grateful, because I know how busy you are, to keep doing this series with you, is one of my intentions for the new year is to follow up where I started last year, to share solutions for people. And why I'm so passionate about Roots and your products and your company and your team is all of this goes together. It's the complete package, because what you've got is you've got the perfect balance of science and nature and intention. And I think people underestimate how important that is. And so one of my sort of aims this year is to really give people solutions that anyone and everyone can take part in, because I feel last year was a lot about a lot of people getting their level of understanding up in terms of the scales of some of the issues that we're facing. And I like to say, not just as humanity, but as a planet, all creatures, great and small. But once you've got that awareness, I don't like to stay in that vibration. I like to say, well, okay, well, what are we going to do with it? What are we going to create? And, I am not just drinking this for the camera. I am taking these products, living them, because what we're going to do today, folks, and so many people have asked me to do this, we're going to give a little overview of each of the products so that people can really understand how they all fit together, because there is no such thing as one solution for every problem. So what we're going to do is, let's start with the Trinity, your original three, which I've sort of got here. And when we're going through this, I want people to be really aware of how important consistency is, because we're being bombarded by toxins and stressors every day. So another one of my intentions for this year, which I'm pretty good at when my daughter's around, because she's so shit hot at it, she's such a great athlete, is you've got to be consistent with what you're doing with your life. And this is a really important message, I think, for people when they're working with themselves or with their animals. So let's start with the Trinity. Should we start with my absolute favorite, the clean slate?
You have to start with the foundation. I mean, to not start with the one that was the reason for it all, you can't limit it. So yeah, clean slate really is that. And I think it's important to understand that clean slate is not just the detoxifying foundation, right? It's the foundation for regeneration. And that's honestly what makes Clean Slate so special, and especially compared to the category that it sits in, because of what it's derived from, which is clinoptilolite. And we use, as we've gone over before, we use the purest source of clino. And I left the crumpet cat at home. Tilly's here with me today, but you get the intermediary.
Yeah,
and
just checking it all out.
Clean Slate is now proven to be the most effective product in its space. And I'll say, of all of the detox products out there, I mean, it is the most effective. But because of what Christina did with it, it is not just grabbing onto and binding the heavy metals, the mercury, the cadmium, the arsenic, the lead, the aluminum, the cesium, the strontium, the gadolinium. It's getting the glyphosate, it's getting the graphene. We've proven it.
Yeah.
The viral fragments, it's proven, and taking that next step of being able to deliver the key trace minerals, the key bioavailable silica that allows the regeneration process, the gap filling that takes place from detoxification. Because if you're removing heavy metals, you have to replace many of those heavy metals with the trace minerals that those heavy metals are blocking binding sites for. Absolutely. And it needs to be something done simultaneously. It's not something that you want to, okay, I'm going to do all this, and then later on, I'm going to do this. You have to create this simultaneous blend so you don't have a process called mineral gapping.
Yeah.
Right? Where you feel good because you've cleaned some stuff up, and then you dip because you don't have the minerals needed in order to improve your overall metabolism, and you feel sluggish again, and those binding sites get blocked with more heavy metals because of your body rebalancing. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, and whilst you're doing that, look, if just as well I'm prepared, because every time I make notes, it just decides I'm not going to read from my notes and lies on them. It's so important. Now, I will say that all my animals are on the Clean Slate, and having 5 cats, what I love about it is I'm a herbalist, and sometimes it can be quite difficult to get cats to select certain herbs. Obviously, they select the ones they need, but the cats love the Clean Slate. So my cats, my dogs, my horses are always on the Clean Slate. Bear in mind, anyone who's watching this that has lucky enough to got animals and plants in their life, that we've got to look after our animals as much as we look after ourselves.
Absolutely. And you hit on the key part. Animals love this stuff. And they love it not just because of how it makes them feel, but the energetics of it. That's what really, really they're drawn to, because they're much more connected spiritually and energetically to Earth, the way that we're supposed to be. But we've been, so disconnected through our calcification of our pineal gland and just being overloaded with chemical toxicity, and then including the chemical toxicity to go along with the frequency toxicity, because of having those antennas in you, that we are disconnected from that. But it's interesting because there are a lot of people that have done work, to be more balanced, to be more connected, and more frequency sensitive, you can say, that are getting a bottle, they'll take a drop and they're like, I'm feeling stuff in minutes. And I was reading someone's post yesterday that they had that response, and they posted a really good story about what their experience was with their first drop. Yeah. And someone commented that this isn't possible. I'm like, oh, it's possible. It's quantum physics. And we've already proven it with physics to show that it's legitimate. So you can't argue with it.
Yeah, look, it's my yoga cat. His legs stick out. Now, that's a very good point you've done. So anyone who follows the work of people like Joe Dispenza, etc., we know that when you're talking about the quantum level and the quantum healing, the normal laws of sort of biology and physics don't apply. And this is what people need to understand is, you and I talk about the same. We say, try it for yourself. Personally, I have done studies with my horses and my cats. Haven't done it with the dogs yet. And what I did is I put I put 2 identical bowls of food out, put some of the clean slate in one of the foods for the cats. With the horses, I did it in a bit of apple. And I offered them, and every single time they went for the bowl with the clean slate in. And one of my other friends, who's also a zoopharmacognosy practitioner, animal self-medicating, she did the same with her cats and got the same results. So they can pick up the energy of it. And certainly I've got experience from all of my animals. They are self-medicating with it. And it's fantastic. But again, I really encourage people, make sure you're consistent with it. It's not the type of thing you do for a few days and then forget about. When you keep it up and you're consistent with your mind, your body, your spirit, the results you get are off the scale.
Well, and it's really the key part. And I was talking to a friend last night, but then, people pretty continually over the last 2 years, and someone, you get the question that comes up is, oh, I did this for a couple weeks and I felt better. And like, oh, you were just getting started. And it's really the important part of consistency, and you looked at it like you're talking about with your daughter being an athlete. If you're an athlete and you're a competitive athlete, you don't work out twice a week and take 5 days off. You go, okay, I'm gonna pick it up again next week, and expect to have gains and expect to perform well. It doesn't work that way. And in this environment that we're living in, because we are under attack, we are under biological attack. Not just viral, but biological. And if we separate that and say, okay, you have this exposure consistently, you also have the exposure that you've had for your entire life. And that's really what our focus has been addressing, because if you address that, the rest of the biological exposure that we're dealing with is muted greatly, because your ability to then become more protective and better at management of your internal environment becomes really, really good. That your external environment, this biological exposure, is going to be, eliminated or inhibited. And when you do get exposed to stuff, you'll get sick. You might get sinusy, you might get flu-like symptoms for a couple days or so, and your immune system gets to go, great, I too get to have a workout now.
Exactly.
So I'm good. Thank you very much. Let's do it. And your hair starts to grow and your nails get better and your skin gets better. And, it's great. It's funny because, my hair is always a point of conversation.
Yeah.
As Christina told me, she's like, when all of this started, she's like, you should have longer hair. I'm like, okay, I'll grow it out. But we had a meeting last night, and there was a U.S. Air Force Lieutenant General, retired Lieutenant General. He's actually one of the guys that created Space Force, that was at this meeting with us last night. And one of the first things he said, he's like, I love your hair. I'm like, yeah, all right. And I was like, if a Lieutenant General is like, I love it, I'm like, all right, I'm making progress. But it's the key point of continual use, that you will continually see changes, right? Because what we're doing is just like Shrek talked about, of ogres having layers and being like an onion. We're just peeling that patina, little bits at a time, and going layer by layer by layer. Taking off the first layer and getting started is really easy. And that's done really, really quickly. That's done day 1, day 2, day 3. But you shouldn't ever stop there, because greatness is found as you start getting down to that. And like we've talked about, in order to uncover that masterpiece, it's not just the first wipe that you do. It's that process of continually, just getting that patina off that's been built up in us and on us. And it's not something you can do quickly. And then as you do that, you'll start to see that masterpiece. And then when you start to uncover the masterpiece, then you start getting into the finer details. And then when you've really cleaned up those finer details, then you look at preservation. You're like, okay, maybe I put a different frame on this. Maybe we start to see some different stuff. And that's really the crucial component. And you have clean slate as that foundation. but then there's other key components that go along with it, and that's the siblings in the Trinity, and then with the addition of the other two that we'll get to introduce here in a minute.
Yeah, and one of the things that I just want to point out, some of my own personal experience. So with my cats, and they've got the most amazing fur, my cats and dogs,
Yep.
in brilliant condition. Now, one of the things I noticed that all my animals have come to me from sort of quite traumatic backgrounds often. And one of the things is when they've been in those situations, often they haven't been fed very good food because they can't, the rescue homes can't do that. They've done an amazing job just keeping them alive. And some of my cats I had a couple of cats that had been starved in the past, that were very much overeating and and I had a couple of others that were really struggling to retain weight, despite the fact they're on a really good diet now. Now, what I found with the Clean Slate, with the cats, that's the only product I've used so far, although I am going to come on to the ReLive Greens, which we'll talk about in a bit. But I just wanted to say to people, the body has the most amazing way, when you take those toxins out and remineralize it, of regulating itself and getting itself back in balance. And what I've noticed with all my cats is now their weights, the ones that needed to gain weight have, and the ones that needed to lose weight have. And that's the only thing I've changed. So I love the testimonials from the animals, because there's no placebo, there's nothing else involved, and it's really obvious. So the next one in the Trinity then, these wonderful little Restore packets. Now, I know you're meant to eat them throughout the day or drink them throughout the day. I can't resist it. I always take mine all in one go, because once you start, you can't stop. So talk us through what this Restore does for people and how it fits into the Trinity.
The first part, from a dosage standpoint, it's, you can space out a sachet, use a little bit in the morning, a little bit in the afternoon, a little bit in the evening, depending upon your budget, right? But like you're talking about, we have a lot of our community that's like, I'm using 3 or 4 of these a day.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing. And especially in the environment and for what Restore is intended to do. So just really quickly, ingredient, but also process profile. And there's a little secret that's on the package, and that is really the intentional component and the energetics of what Christina puts into these. But the combination of resveratrol, D-ribose, apple cider vinegar, pure curcuminoids, black cumin seed oil, probably missing a couple actives, that she created this quantum nano emulsion. So one, the process that she uses to create these little nano emulsions with this combination of ingredients, the quality of the ingredients and the quantity is what's so crucial. Is this product is so dense with actives that even a little bit goes a long way.
Yeah.
And it's so amazing, and if you want to really get an understanding of how effective this product is at being delivered into tissue, is being able to use it topically, not just as a facial, which will cause you to get younger. But if you're using it on, injured sites, if you've got, an injury like an ankle injury or a contusion, or, carpal tunnel issues, stuff like that. It's been absolutely amazing with topical use and seeing outcomes and changes within minutes because of, what those actives are proven to do. But when taken in the right amounts and really in the right combinations, you get these benefits. But what Restore was created for specifically was gut health.
Yeah.
Right. Because your gut and your microbiome, your biome, your virome are extremely crucial for your immune system, right? For digestion, for neurotransmission production, which is what's going to lead into Zero In.
Look at that beautiful color, everyone. It's so vibrant.
Don't waste the inside.
I don't waste it. So that's why I wanted to show people. So what we do is once you've had the sachet, I then open that up and at night put it on your face Or, for example, if you've got dogs, a lot of dogs, I deal with a lot of dogs with skin conditions. This is amazing to apply topically to any skin conditions because it's got antifungal properties as well, hasn't it, Clayton?
And it's the antifungal, the anti-mold, the anti-parasitic properties that are so very important, especially right now, because what we're under biological attack with is not viral.
Yeah.
It's mold and fungal. And that's what's so crucial is when you look at people with the respiratory conditions that are happening, that's not due to a virus. That's due to an overgrowth of mold and fungus. And it's something that is not discussed in medicine because, one, doctors don't have a freaking clue.
Yeah.
And here's the worst part. If they do have a clue, the testing mechanisms that they have in place are 50-50. They're not even accurate. So if they're doing a mold test on somebody or they're doing a fungal test, it's 50-50. It's 50 per half the time it's accurate. Yeah. So which is even more accurate than a COVID test. Yeah. But I mean, still you go, okay, you know, you got a 50-50 chance that it's going to be correct. So you go, oh yeah, you don't have a fungal issue. And you go, oh, okay, it's not that. I'm like, no, it actually is that. You just can't tell.
Yeah.
And it's really, really important. So you've got something that is going to help the gut, but it also works systemically. And I'll give you one example, you know, of what it does from a gut health standpoint, you know, with my son. He's 17 now, and they don't typically listen, right? Because, you know, they're never going to listen to their mother, no matter who their mother is. And it's fun listening to our kids. They're like, oh, I'm sick. And she's like, do this, 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 and this. Like, you know, that's what we made. They're like, no, I'm going to go look for some stuff. And we're like, you understand countries actually have asked her for protocols, and we have doctors that have proven that this is what you're supposed to do. They're like, oh no. I'm like,
I know that feeling well. I know that feeling well. Yeah.
So you have the importance of really helping your gut regenerate, bringing that leaky gut, you know, back together, those tight junctions that are needed in your gut, helping to restore the proper environment. And you hear people talk about the importance of being antiviral right now. Well, your virome, right? That component of your gut and your system, we're loaded with trillions of cells, trillions of fungus, trillions of mold, viruses, bacteria, that some are good, some are bad. And it's the importance of maintaining that balance, not offsetting too much either way. You kill off too much bad, you have an imbalance. You kill off too much good, or you have a suppression of what's good and an overgrowth of what's bad, that's also bad. You know, so it's allowing the body to maintain homeostasis. And what's really cool is we have that proof too. So yeah. And I think the fun part comes in when you use the first two, and then when you combine the third, because 0N is the one that I will tell you, probably the most powerful and impactful at this time, but it is the least consumed.
Yeah.
We know this. I know this because we have all the data. We're like, why are people not buying 0N? And I don't think it's just a lack of understanding. There's a component to people just not truly accepting, because there's so much trash in the market, right? Just garbage products that have been pitched for long periods of time, that people don't think that this is actually doing what it's doing. And you don't know until you use it. And even for the people that have been using it, like I put this challenge out on Monday for a lot of our ambassadors in my training. I think it was this week or last week. I think it was on Monday. I was like, look, take a 0N before you go to bed. And people are like, there's no way, I won't go to sleep. I'm like, that's the problem. You think that it's a stimulant.
Yeah.
It's not. It's an adaptogen. And people get concerned with the anhydrous caffeine, that's in it. They're like, oh, there's 100 milligrams of caffeine. No, it's anhydrous caffeine, and it works through a completely different pathway, but it's combined with these ingredients to be a catalyst to produce dopamine and serotonin that then your intention controls. And the point of this comes down to, if you have an increased level of dopamine and serotonin, what do you want to do with it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And what does dopamine and serotonin do? It makes you feel amazing. It makes everything better. It makes food better. It makes exercise better. It makes your immune system better. It makes your stress levels lower. They no longer exist. And in this environment where people are talking about brain fog and fatigue and just lethargy, and the term languishing that is being used clinically now, because this has been ongoing, and this is a biological attack that's intended to wear you down. If you're not participating in the process they want to wear you down. And if you're not taking care of this, you will crack.
Yeah, and it's never been more important at the moment, because I know we say this, and I know a lot of people have been through very traumatic times in their lives, and everyone's experience is different. But I think the thing is, at the moment, a lot of people who will be watching this video are taking ownership of educating themselves in a new way, using new resources, because they're realizing that there's been so much mind control in place. But unfortunately, on both sides of the fence, there's a lot of mind control in place. And one of the things I love about the combination, particularly of the 0N and the clean slate, is the clean slate will really help, as we've talked about in previous videos, decalcify the pineal gland. And then the 0N is really going to help your focus, help your intention, because we all need that, because there's so much misinformation being fed to people from all sorts of corners. It's really, really important we arm ourselves as best as possible to deal with that.
Well, and it's the term that's been used for a long time that leads to our intuition that women are much better at than men. And it's the term of trust your gut.
Yeah.
Right. I get that gut feeling. In your gut, in your core, because the vagus nerve connects both brains. Right. And we hear that there is such a phenomenal focus now on gut health. And it's not just a marketing term, even though for most companies, it is a marketing term, because we know the importance of the microbiome, the biome, the virome, gut benefits, and what's been done to destroy it, right? With glyphosate, with heavy metals, with stress, with everything. So you hear companies that are pitching that constantly, but they're not addressing every angle, right? You hear companies say, this is an amazing gut product. Okay, great. Are you addressing every foundational point? And that's really what we've done. Now, we talk about from head to toes and how everything functions, but when you look at the Trinity, and then when you add ReLive, and when you add natural barrier support in, all of these, all 5 products are, I won't say just gut centric, but gut specific, and expanding from there, because everything starts in here. Right?
Absolutely.
Everything goes in and then goes out from your gut. So if you want the really simple, quick synopsis tutorial on gut health, let me do it. Clean slates, removing the heavy metals, the environmental toxins, the stuff that's inhibiting us from functioning properly. It's delivering the trace minerals and the bioavailable silica that improves the ability to regenerate. The gut lining, it's going to help that regenerate. The addition of restore is going to kill off the bad stuff, help create that balance, bring those tight junctions back together, allow the gut to become properly functional, to get digestion going, to allow your intestines and your colon to start moving stuff through and flush stuff out properly. And then as you do that, the most important thing of all is neurotransmission. So you've got to have your neurotransmission production going again. Well, stress overrides the, production of neurotransmission, even if your gut is healthy. So zero in is feeding your gut also some of the ability to regenerate in aspects. So you boost your dopamine and serotonin levels. So you overcome the stress response. So your sympathetic response actually comes down. Your fight or flight response can decrease. You can become balanced. So your gut comes in line. And then you have ReLive, which is going to feed a lot of the prebiotics, the probiotics, the fibers, the key nutrients needed, the minerals, a lot of the key vitamins that are cofactors to go along with what Clean Slate does. So if you want more collagen, you don't need to just take collagen supplements. What you need is bioavailable silica, and you need a specific amino acids. A lot of all of those amino acids found or needed for collagen production are found in plant sources, not just meats and eggs, but in plant sources. All of those are found in those plant sources that are in ReLive. So you get all the trace minerals, the bioavailable silica and Clean Slate. You get the good amino acids and the amazing nutrients that you also need in ReLive to go along with Restore. And you start to see this process of regeneration happen really, really quickly. And the extra immune support that your gut needs in this environment, you hear three things talked about. You need vitamin C, you need vitamin D, and zinc. And you need them in the right combination, in the right amounts, and the right quality. So we solve that too. And we did that at a price that no other company can compete with a quality of product and a quantity of ingredients that no other company can compete with. It's not often that you can get the highest quality and the highest quantity at the lowest price.
And one of the reasons I think you've done that, because I love this. I love the taste of it. Also, it's a powder that people add to their water. And that means that even people who have got at the moment compromised digestive, you're not putting any pressure on any of your organs or any of your digestive system to absorb it into your system, and you're not getting any problems with capsules or tablets and not getting absorption. So one of the biggest questions I've had asked about this, because this to me is gold dust. I got this, because we'll finish off at the end by Root Prime, but because I was a Root Prime member, I could pre-order this. And so all my family have had this for Christmas, because what else is there that I could give to them than the gift of health? But talk me through the challenges, because we've had a lot of questions, and I've been speaking to you about this, about these daily amounts per servings, because that's very controversial, isn't it, in terms of what different countries have got in terms of what they recommend in terms of recommended daily volume. And also I know you have to put it on the packet, but it's an oversimplification, isn't it? Because obviously daily volume doesn't take into account the synergy between the ingredients, but also how they're absorbed.
You have the conversation of what they want to tell you should take, versus what the science says is efficacious and optimal. We really don't listen to they.
Yeah, absolutely.
When your wife speed reads with an eidetic memory, and when she gets into something, she's like, I'm going to read all the clinical literature available on these ingredients, and then I'm going to get into the science. And then because of how her mind works, and you can't explain it, because there's no way to explain what she really is. Because people go, well, you talk too much about your wife. I'm like, actually, I can't talk enough about my wife, but she's made for this. This is what she was put here for. And that prophecy was put over her 25 years ago when she was at Pfizer, and she was at a spiritual event, a Christian event in Alabama. And the people putting on the event told her that there was this banner of Esther that was over her. But the prophecy that they received, that they were seeing, was she was put here to heal people in a war on healthcare.
Yeah.
And she's like, there's no wars in healthcare.
Mm.
And they're like, this is what we're being told, this is what we're seeing. And so when it comes to formulations and process and creating solutions, she already has the answers. She already knows. So when she's putting something together, and even when she was in biotech and pharma, and she was an adjunct professor at Johns Hopkins in oncology. And when she was being asked questions about complex oncological situations, she would just give them the answer. Much like Matt Damon was doing in the movie Good Will Hunting, when he was at MIT, and he's just looking at the blackboard and looking at mathematical equations and going, that's the answer.
Yeah.
And then professors are going, how do you know this? He's like, it doesn't matter. This is easy to me. This is the answer. I don't care that you can't understand how I got there. This is the answer. And, it's been an acceptant process to really just foster that in her and just say, babe, do what you do. You don't explain, but when people want to understand, you can get into the research and you can see that, okay, 1,500 milligrams of vitamin C. And what kind of vitamin C? Exactly. Well, she's using a dehydrated liposomal vitamin C. Okay, that's the best vitamin C you can get on the market. And it's really expensive. And with that 1,500 milligrams of vitamin C, then you have 40 milligrams of zinc sulfate. Well, why zinc sulfate? Well, it's been proven for its efficacy. And why that amount? Well, that amount, when combined with 1,500 milligrams of vitamin C and combined with 125 micrograms of vitamin D, is the recommended and proven protocol based on clinical studies and data that shows in working with your immune system and taking care of the inflammatory responses and the issues that are going on because of the biological attacks that we're being exposed to currently. This is how you deal with it with these 3 ingredients. And she created this product not for us. She didn't create it for Root. She created it in some of the projects she's doing for COVID remediation for 22 countries.
Yeah.
So when we had it done, she's like, I think we need to make this available to the community. So we did.
It's much easier because so many people, everyone's aware of the vitamin D, the vitamin C, the zinc that is needed, but it's so easy to this. And one of the things I don't think people realize is this is a 100-day supply. But let's talk quickly about dosing, because it's something as a natural health practitioner I get asked all the time, and you and I have spoken about this in all our other videos, is that people, whether you're an animal, whether you're a human, either in a non-furry animal, everyone is unique in terms of their physiology, their current stresses that their bodies are or aren't under, their current lifestyle choices that they're taking or having forced upon them. So it's really important that, legally, when you sell these things, you have to put a dose on the bottle, but people need to tune in with themselves and adapt it for themselves, don't they, Clayton?
Well, you can follow, and it goes with Clean Slate as well, to where you can follow what's on the bottle. You might have more of an experience than you expect initially because of how powerful it is. But it is just that. It's a matter of the intuition process.
Yeah.
Trusting your gut is something that is actually accelerated and enhanced through this process. Because if you don't have a healthy gut, you're not getting a healthy signal. Absolutely. Right? Your intuition is going to be poor if your gut health is poor.
And I just want us to interrupt you there, because this is something I've spoken about so much this week. It's so important. So we all talk about misinformation coming in. And normally when we're talking about that as humans, we're talking about misinformation that we hear, that we see, that we read, etc. So coming in very much into a headspace, but everyone who's going to take the time to listen to you and I is very aware of the bigger attributes. And if your gut is out of balance, which virtually every human and animal it is because of the day-to-day stresses that are upon us, your intuition, your gut feel is going to be misleading, just like any tool can be misleading if the input is wrong. So when you put your gut back into health, everything improves. It really does.
Yeah. Well, and it's the fun part of, you look at dowsing, right?
Yeah.
And it's the interesting part. And the same thing with muscle testing.
Yeah.
Right. With applied kinesiology, which the application of applied kines is very accurate. So you take the dowsing aspect and you go, okay, I have this crystal, it resonates with me, and so you ask the questions. But what happens when the vessel that is asking the question is actually not in line?
Exactly.
Is the answer you're going to get not only accurate, but is it going to be correct? You go, well, the mechanism is wrong, or you can't do functional medicine and applied kinesiology testing because it's not accurate. Like, actually, it comes down to one, the patient, but two, the person asking the question.
Absolutely.
Because if you have someone who's toxic, and I get this all the time I was having this conversation yesterday with a friend, and he's like, look, I have a friend that started on Zero In and Restore because she had a practitioner do testing on her and said that she only rated for 5% good for clean slate. I'm like, yeah, because 95% of her is completely poisoned.
Yeah.
So you have to understand not only the response, but the question you're asking. And when you look at the environment that's going on today, many of us that are awakening, because there's no one that is truly awake right now. There's so much coming and so much going on that those of us that are in tune with, hey, there's a shift going on, we are awakening and we are acceptant of this process. And as new things happen and new things come in, we sit there with our popcorn and go, yeah, that's pretty cool. I didn't see that one coming. That was a surprise, but I'm okay with it. And we look at the rest of the population that is choosing to get stuck. And if they're getting 3 and not 2, they are electing to get AIDS. And I don't think any of us, given a choice of saying, look, you have something that has a 99.99% chance of not hurting you, of not killing you. And you can take this and it might help, even though all the data says it doesn't, but you're being told this can help you. And one of the benefits of doing this in the way that we tell you you should do it is you're going to get AIDS. Not from the toilet seat, not from a blood transfusion, but you are going to elect to have them put it in you. So your immune system drops so significantly that you are now an AIDS patient, clinically an AIDS patient. Would you make that choice? And people, if you laid it out for them in that manner, people will go, no, I'll take the 99.99% chance that I'm not going to have a problem and I'm going to have the flu and I'll get sick for a little bit.
Absolutely. And during that process, my body will detox in the way it's meant to, incorporate in all the stuff it needs to upgrade itself and be stronger because of it. And I'll support it through that process whilst it's going through that healing.
And the key point is this: if your body is so polluted and so toxic, they can give you the signaling, the messaging of it's bad. Everyone's getting sick. Everyone's going to die. You have to do this. And if you're really polluted, you're going to get that signaling and go, oh my God, I need to do this.
Yeah.
Because your gut is all jacked up. And it's like, hey, we need to listen because they are looking out for our best interest. And the rest of us going awake are going, bruh, don't do it. They can't even hear you because that signal is blocked because of the disruption that's here.
Absolutely.
And that's really the disconnect, is the more you do to clean up, this amazing entity that we are, this amazing combination of viruses and, you know, neurotransmitters and fungus and mold and bacteria and light and, you know, all of the things that we're made of, that when you start to create balance, then you start to go, oh, okay, I'm here. I get it now, even a little bit, right? It doesn't take a lot to say, no, I'm not going to do that. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
You know, but we see so much of the population that is so susceptible to fear and so susceptible to the messaging. And we can't comprehend why it's chosen.
Because the state of their microbiome is
Yes.
like having MSM give you the messages all the time. It's
Yes.
like you've got, that's exactly what it is. You're getting the fake media, the fake messages coming
Yes.
through to you because it's been poisoned. And when you cleared it up, you'll love the taste of this. Honestly, you'll absolutely love it, because suddenly the messages that your body will be getting will be the right ones and helping you make better choices for yourselves and the planet, basically. That's fantastic. I mean, I hope people have really understood, you know, a quick whistle stop tour, because there is no such thing as one product that does everything, is there?
No, there's no silver bullet. I mean, we're not dealing with werewolf.
Exactly.
Right? And it's important that we are to understand that we are the most complex operating system that's ever been on this planet. We are the quantum computer, right? And, you know, through that, while there is the perceived simplicity and the complexity, right? That people look at this and go, okay, if I eat right and I do these things, I'm good. When you really look at, you know, fine tuning this operating system, you can't just say, okay, I'm going to do this one thing and I'm good. I'm going to exercise more this year and I'm going to get the outcomes I want to see. No, you won't. That's not how it works. You know, it's, oh, I'm going to drink more water and I'm going to be fine. No, that's not how it works either. You know, or I'm going to work on cleaning up the mess. You know, I'm going to take clean slate and everything's going to start working better. Well, no, that's not how it works either. You are going to have amazing benefits from using clean slate and doing that. But from an overall functional standpoint, you won't see everything that you want to see, because you have to hit on every major segment. And that's really what Christina's done and what she continues to do, you know, with some of the additions that are coming. Because what we're doing is filling gaps and then providing solutions to behaviors to, I'll give you an example. And because we're working on finalizing this. I don't partake in this process because I quit when I was 8 years old, but a large portion of the planet does. There's this liquid called coffee, and people like to consume it, right? Especially here in the United States. And what they get in their coffee is something that they're not really aware of, because the primary providers of coffee don't tell you that it's loaded with mold.
Yeah.
Most coffee is loaded with mold because of the process and, you know, what they do to it, how it's made. And so people are just consuming mold every day. Well, we're not very big on the mold market, right? We don't like the mold. So we actually have a coffee roaster that's just down the road here, about 30 minutes from the office, that we're working on collaborating, that they're going to fresh roast beans and grind them and package them for our community with a ROM roast. I mean, who wouldn't want the ROM roast? Because Christina's going to be able to go down and play with the roaster and have some fun and put her intention into those beans and everything that goes on with it. But you will have the freshest coffee you can get, because we're going to create a collaboration. This is what Root's really designed for, right? Is to create a collaboration that then we can go from farm to table really quickly. And everyone that likes coffee is going to have the freshest coffee you can get, no mold, you know, and when you order it, it's made and then it's drop shipped to you, you know, so you know that, oh, I've got really, really good stuff. And It'll be amazing. But then the other part people want is a creamer. Well, you don't want cream, right? Because most milk is not good for you. So, and there's a couple things that Christina and I have used for years that I wanted to have my own version of. So she created a combination of colostrum and multiple collagen sources. So it's a creamer, but you can also take it in your smoothie. So you've got the extra collagen to go along with what Clean Slate and ReLive and everything else are doing, and the needed colostrum, because we don't get any anymore. And that's very protective and gut beneficial. And some people are like, oh, well, I don't like the sources of it. That's fine. You don't have to use it. But it's starting to hit on some of these other key components, just filling some of those gaps and some of the behavioral patterns to give the highest quality possible. But also because of our business model, if you're able to share, something that you enjoy and something that's better than what you can get in the market, and when you look at most of this stuff, something that's actually less expensive and higher quality than what you're getting in the market, and you tell your friends and you get rewarded for creating the value behind it, well, yeah, all right, let's go. Because I hate Starbucks.
Yeah, and this is such an important point. What I wanted to finish with is about creating the value. And a lot of people, everyone's in a different financial situation. And one of the things that really I love about your company is when we're sharing our link and things, we're not just sharing it, we're passing it forward, and we're giving everyone the opportunity to do the same with their friends and family and whatever networks they've got, so that it doesn't matter whatever starting financial position you're in, everyone can have access to these products by sharing their links. And that is really, really important, because that is really putting your money where your mouth is and supporting ethical businesses that are passing it forward and giving this opportunity to all. So thank you for doing that.
Well, and it's one of those things with some of my partners here that they saw, and they looked at it, like, to when Ted looked at it and he had his business prior, it's like, you understand, you're changing commerce, because this is not just something that you can do, right? And he got it really quickly because we're born on the same day, and we're both a little disruptive. He's like, you want to change the entire construct of business, don't you? I'm like, yeah. Because if you're a business and you're in a service business, or you're providing services to people, this is actually the most effective business mechanism you can create, because you won't need advertising if you have quality, right? Yeah, exactly. You can do anything, right? And why would you not want your greatest salespeople active selling your products, right? And it's one of the reasons that we're doing what we're doing with Root Prime subscriptions. And the incentive that I wanted to do, that we're starting this month, just to incentivize the behavior, but also show I'm doing it to set an example for one of the guys that I really want to work with. I decided that I'm going to give away one of his cars so we can get in touch and be like, hey, you should come play with me. That, as a company, why you spend money on advertising, and the money that you spend on advertising is sent to the beast, so the beast can use all their data that they've collected on our behavior that we've given them for free, and then you're going to send that message back to the consumer base, and then those consumers, if they have a good experience with you, are going to tell your friends or tell their friends to come have that same experience. Well, why not just redistribute that money? Instead of going this way, give it to the people that created the value.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perpetrate it. And it doesn't have to be in the amount that we do it, right? Because I was pretty specific. I'm like, look, I want to take 47% of everything we make, because that's going to be my marketing budget. And let's just put in people. And maybe their number is 30%, maybe it's 20%. It doesn't matter. You can model it to fit any business. But it's understanding that in society now, we are the ones that are of value.
Yeah.
And I think that's the psychological component that's lost, right? Because of all of the chaos going on, people have forgotten our power. We have forgotten we are the ones of influence. We dictate what goes on collectively. We are the ones who've created trillion-dollar market valuations for companies that give us nothing other than stuff. So we wanted to give back.
Yeah, and it's really important. And I think, you know, I hope everyone appreciates that. So wherever you're at, and if you're looking at the products for the first time, look at the how long they last for, because you'll be really surprised as well. So it's really important. Thank you so much for that overview. Absolutely brilliant. I think it's going to be really useful for people that are sort of struggling to explain to people about, you know, a little bit of overview about what everything does. So thanks so much, Clayton.
Well, thank you for having me. It's always the fun part. You know, it's what you hit on, you know, that we do a lot of it during the holidays, but anytime you can hang out with family, you got to do it.
Exactly.
It's the opportunity to get family together, and we just get to be entertaining is all.
Yeah, and the final thing I want to say is anyone who joins the Root community, which is completely free to do, you get access to so much training if you want, because you guys are brilliant at sharing your knowledge on the products, on the business model, so people can step in or out of that as much as they want. And that's really important. Again, it's giving people the choice, which is so important.
If you're skeptical or if you're involved, do your research, right? Yeah. And go to our YouTube channel and subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's free too, but on the YouTube channel, spend some time on there. And especially if you're a practitioner, like Catherine, your experience, and like you're talking about the community of people that you have with you that are practitioners or that have a background in wellness, right? In different areas of it. And spend some time on our channel. There's over, let me see, there's 52 last year. I know over close to 100 hours of content that is, a lot of the content is actually created by PhDs. So it's PhD level research that's brought down to a level that hopefully most of us can understand. And the concepts that are there, the validation, the proof, the case studies, the testimonials, the fun, it's educational, hopefully it's entertaining. The amount of information that's available, if we've had this conversation a lot with Christina and I because of her education background and our kids. We're like, do kids really need a college education anymore? Because it's such a lost mechanism. There's so many different ways to get an education. You can basically get a PhD in environmental toxicology by spending the time watching the videos we have on our channel for free. And I have one of my buddies did this. I haven't talked to him in like 7-8 years. We got connected 2 months ago, reconnected because his wife had to get vaccinated because she's a healthcare professional and she didn't want to quit. She's a nurse. And so she's like, I have to do this because I have to take care of people. And I'm willing to sacrifice myself in order to make sure I'm still doing what I'm doing. He's like, then it's my job to make sure I've got my top 10 things that I need to get in order to take care of you. And I was one of his first calls. He's like, I got a detoxer. What do you know? And so we hadn't talked and then went over root with him. He's like, I'm in. Where do I get more info? I'm like, go to the YouTube channel. So we got on there. So he called me. He's like, okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going back to the first video you ever posted on here, and give me a couple weeks, and then I'll call you back. I'm going to watch every video from beginning to current, and then I'm going to come with questions. You know what he did when he came back? He's like, this is the greatest compilation of information that I've ever seen compiled on any of the subject matter. I've never seen a company put any of this together like this before, and I don't have any questions. I just have a thank you. because it's amazing that all of this is compiled in one place.
Yeah.
And that you're still doing more and that we're learning more. And do we have a couple minutes to show you something?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I share my screen right now?
Yeah, I've let you share the
Because
screen.
it's important to always get, when you go out to dinner, or if you're having dinner with friends and you're doing stuff, because it's later in the afternoon for you, you always want to have dessert, right? If you can, if it's going to be healthy for you, you always want dessert. So let's do a little dessert, because we're deep enough into this that we're not going to get in too much trouble. No censor is going to watch this long.
Mm-hmm. Just don't use those keywords, because believe me, they pick them up.
So let's look at a case study by Dr. Norbert Keshkesh, and this was done with the International Science and Nutrition Society, which everyone's going to be able to participate in here very soon, which is the compilation of information on all different things from science and nutrition, case studies for different products, and such. You can see some of the people involved. But this specific case study that we're going to look at real quick, and I'm not going to use some of the language, I'm going to point to words so you can understand this.
Right.
Was done by Dr. Norbert Keshkesh. Dr. Keshkesh is not just your standard MD. He is the guy for working with the Olympic athletes and Olympic Committee in Hungary. He works with professional athletes all over Europe. He is one of the top docs out there in Europe and Eastern Europe for working with athletes. This case study was done on this issue, on the post-exposure issues that show these kind of symptoms.
And anyone who's listening to this rather than watching, at this stage, you're going to need to look at your screen, because there's words on here that we can't say.
So even though it's 2022, people still want to reference 19. I don't know why 2019 is so important anymore when it's 2022. But when you look at some of the risk factors for post-exposure to these things, the severe symptoms, come for people that have older age, lung conditions like asthma, heart disease issues, cardiovascular risk factors, hypertension and such, brain or nervous system disorders, diabetes, obesity, cancer, certain blood conditions, kidney and liver issues, and mineral and nutrient deficiencies. If you have multiple of these comorbidities, you are the risk group, for issue. But what we're seeing is that even if you're not in that risk group, you can have issues. How many people do you know that have a couple of those things? Mm-hmm. Most of them. And what we're going to look at, I'm going to show you a correlation that's really, really important that is not being discussed yet. We talked about it yesterday with Dory. And you see where it says liver function?
Yeah.
And liver disease. Statistically, in the United States, 30% of the population, no matter the age, because they're seeing it in kids now as well, 30% of this population has non-alcoholic fatty liver.
Yeah, and I see this as a huge, huge problem, liver issues with animals. And being an iridologist, I can see that before the clinical symptoms present themselves. It's a massive problem for all species.
Here's some of the symptomology of that post-issue basis. Now, what's important is the symptoms that are found in people that have been infected, right, for post issues are identical to people that have been stuck. They have the same issues, long-term issues, which are these. You can see the predisposing factors, the chronic cardiovascular disease, the respiratory issues, the metabolic issues, the obesity, the smoking, the extreme stress. But the symptoms are shortness of breath, chest pain, severe fatigue, dizziness, central and peripheral nervous system symptoms, strokes, polyneuropathy. Do you want a stroke? No. You want inflammation of your heart? Probably not. You want numbness in your limbs and the headache and your loss of sense and smell and taste and the brain fog and everything that goes with it? No. These are all things that people are showing, no matter if you've been sick before and you're showing later symptoms, or in this instance of what we're going to look at, a 40-year-old athlete that had been sick, but then also got 2 gifts from Pfizer. And let's look at that. But one of the key markers to look at is this, proBNP. And this marker is a consequence of what they call myocardial stretch due to overload. Well, what causes that? Inflammation, a cytokine storm, right? That causes cardiac inflammation. This is the primary cardiac inflammation marker. Kind of important, right? Because you hear the term myocarditis. Here's your marker. So you can see that in hospitalized patients with severe issues from 2019, that higher levels of NT-proBNP, this marker, at the time of admission were strongly suggestive of increased mortality. It also indicates a subgroup of patients in whom cardioprotective therapy is required because your heart isn't working very well anymore. It's inflamed. Problem. So Dr. Keshkesh did a case study on a single patient using 3 products. You can see blend 1 looks a lot like Clean Slate. Blend 2 looks a lot like Zero In. Blend 3 looks a lot like Restore. Because they were. 40-year-old athlete, athletic male, right? Got infected in May. Regular sportsman, non-smoker, not obese. It had mild symptoms, including a fever, mild fatigue, loss of taste and smell. After 2 weeks, the symptoms disappeared. He was on bisoprolol. And my pronunciation of that one is a new one for me, but I still can't get it right. He came in October, with so infected in May, and in between May and October, he had a visit to his doctor and twice, got stabbed twice. So we don't know which the issues were from. Yeah. Was it from infection in May? Or was it from a visit? Or is it the combination of both, right? So he had some difficulty breathing with mild exertion. He had severe fatigue and dizziness, numbness in his lungs, headache, sleep disturbances, brain fog, couldn't think, unable to do sports. His diagnostics showed that his proBNP levels were 360 picograms per milliliter. Normal is up to 125. Wow. But here's where it gets a little interesting. His liver enzyme levels, the key markers for non-alcoholic fatty liver, his ASOT and ALOT, which you can also watch a case study on our YouTube channel of how we address this specifically in a full-blown case study. But his ASOT levels were 105. His ALOT levels were 192. The range, the healthy range for both of those is between 0 and 50. He was at 105 and 192.
Wow.
That's not ideal. What happens if your liver isn't working and your heart isn't working because it's inflamed? You're probably not going to be here very long.
Yeah.
So his protocol, he took blend 3, took 1 in the morning for 7 days, kind of like you did when we were starting. Yeah. And then he went to 1.5 for a week. And then he went to 2 with 1 in the morning and 1 in the evening. And then he took blend 2, where he took 1 capsule in the morning for 3 days. And then after 3 days, he took 1 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon for those little golden pills of greatness. Mm-hmm. And then the little drops that he was taking, they come in a little brown bottle that sound like Clean Slate. He took 5 drops in the morning, 5 drops at night for 3 days. And then every 3 days increased by an extra drop up to 12 drops twice a day. Here's what we found. After 2 weeks, his fatigue and dyspnea had decreased. His headache stopped. His dizziness and limb numbness were greatly reduced, and his thinking became clear. After a month, His shortness of breath, dizziness had all disappeared. His fatigue was minimal, limb numbness and everything was only with heavy physical exertion. Remember, he couldn't work out before. Sleep disturbances had disappeared. Thinking and concentration had improved. But this is where the fun begins. His liver enzyme levels, his OSAT was 52. His ALOT was 50.
Wow.
Hold on, let's go back real quick. Because before it was 105 and 192. Now they're 52 and 50. What's the healthy range? 0 to 50. But his pro-BNP markers had gone from 360 down to 170.
Brilliant.
And he was able to return to regular exercise. So you go,
that's amazing.
I think that's good.
It's more than good. And it's just so empowering when people can have this stuff at their fingertips and take back control over so many aspects of their health. It's just absolutely vital, because that's so empowering to people, just in itself, knowing that they can do this, and having those studies are so invaluable. So thank you so much to everyone involved in that. Because
what they say, the proof is in the pudding, right? It's one thing. And this is one of the biggest things that sets us apart from every other wellness company that's actually ever been out there. Because my wife's never been able to do this before. Because she's taking the science, the mind, the process, because she's done this in biotech and pharma. She was at the highest levels of biotech and pharma. She was a medical science liaison. She had a $17 million annual research budget, working with doctors and putting clinical trials together and understanding the importance of registries and such. We're taking that and applying it into the wellness world.
Yeah.
Because if you can bring pharmaceutical and biotech science into what you can do with nature, you get the outcomes we're getting. And if you understand the game and you track information the same way that biotech and pharma do, and you present it properly, one, you're protected, but it's what consumers need to see. Because you're like, look, it's one thing to hear from your friends and say, hey, this stuff's amazing. This is what it's done for me. Great. Familiarity breeds contempt. My family is going to go, yeah, okay, you know what? We know you. You can't argue with clinical case studies done completely independently. Say, we did this and this and this, and this is what we saw. This is where we started. This is what we saw. Okay.
Going back to Bruce Lipton, the biology of belief. Belief is so powerful.
Yep.
I love working with animals because you overcome that obstacle, but you've still got the belief energy coming from the humans in their lives. And what you're doing is you're satisfying both sides. You're satisfying those people that really need to see the evidence to believe in it, and therefore then they're opening up their heart to letting these things working for them, which is crucial. It's
conviction, right? I mean, most of the time when someone accepts Christ, they're like, I'm accepting, the Spirit because they've had an experience. There's a level of conviction that allows them to make that choice to say, you know what, I'm willing to accept this. It's like, God, all right, I got you. I understand. I'm accepting it now. Same thing goes in this space. But when you look at really what we're doing and what our mission is, we don't want customers just to say, oh, I had a good experience. Right. And no, I want your heart.
Absolutely.
Because it's only through that of leading here, of saying, look, I know what this is doing for me, and you're convicted at that point. And it's not about sales, right? Because we took the sales part out of the equation. Because if you are convicted in knowing what you're seeing for yourself and your personal experiences are also combined with clinical data that show this and this and this and this and this, you're then bulletproof. You're like, yeah, you know what? You need to try this stuff. Why? Because I'm using it. Like, oh yeah, but you've done all this stuff in the past. Great. You used all these things, and it's a combination of things. Great. You know what? You want evidence? Here's your sign. that you have both. And that's really the crucial component. I think we're really the only ones in this space. And I know lots of people in this space. We're the only ones that understand it. No one else can have the conversation, because there's never been anyone else that's come out of biotech and pharma at this level that's ever left. They don't leave. They're paid so much money. They sign so many NDAs that they don't leave. And the consequences of leaving are pretty dire at times as well. But this is it. So the conviction that we have in having these conversations is intentional, because there's stuff I can't even show you.
Oh, exactly. Oh, I thank you so much for your time tonight. I really appreciate it. And as I said, the reason we're doing this, folks, is 2022 is the year of solutions, as far as I'm concerned. And so part of my role and part of Clayton's role is to bring you some choices, and then you now have free will to do with it what you will. So I hope you've all enjoyed it. Let us know what you think in the comments below, and any questions, you know where I am. Thank you, Clayton.
Thanks for having me.
Brilliant.